Okay, what's up? It's your Otaku Tour Guide here, and we're doing another haul video. This is sort of a video I've been wanting to do for quite some time. And so it's a haul video, but I don't mean that I've been meaning to do a haul video. What I'm wanting to talk about today is really I've been seeing a lot of uh, I don't want to say it's necessarily racist or even nationalistic. I don't think it gets to that point, but there seems to be this sort of narrative that pits American comic books against Japanese comic books, which is manga. Um, and so you see this sort of like debate, between people who read manga and people who read comic books. And really, I think it's a silly debate. It's pointless. They're both great mediums. They're different mediums, and you can enjoy. You can just it. I mean, you don't have to fuse them or pit them against each other. Um, like it's kind of like saying, like pitting hip hop and country music, right? People are just gonna like what they like, and so just leave it at that. If you like country music, you like country music. If you like hip hop, you like hip hop. You can like both. You can like both country music and hip hop, especially if you love the medium of music. And I feel like that's the case with manga and comic book artists. Okay, so let's just put that out there. But at the same time, there are a lot of people who kind of judge or make the judgment that comic books are a better, that they have misconceptions about what manga is. And so that's when I get into, like, you can appreciate comic books, but don't try to diminish manga. Manga's been around just as long as American comic books have, if not longer. And the creatives over in Japan are just as talented as the creatives here in America. So before you make those kinds of bold statements, which are completely untrue, comic books are not better than manga. In fact, I would make the argument, because I have knowledge of both. I don't want to say I'm an expert in manga or an expert in comic books, but I've enjoyed both mediums and read both mediums. And I can, in my opinion, this is my opinion, manga is vastly superior in three areas. Okay, in terms of its format. Okay, the manga is oftentimes a volume of books, a serial that it's just one continuous span. So you'll have, for example, a typical manga title will have maybe 20 to 50 books that are sort of larger in terms of each book contains a lot more content. So when you have larger volume books in a serial, you're able to concentrate more on the story, concentrate more on the character development, the plot development, and of course, the action scenes. When you build all that up, the action scenes become a lot more intense. And so the storytelling, the format allows for better storytelling. The art quality is much better. But I would say one area where Japanese comics really can't compete with American comics is the level of history you can bring to a franchise. So in Japanese comics, you have a story and it ends. A good example would be Naruto. Naruto ran for like almost a decade, okay? And that's a rare exception. But to have something that long, it's created like a brand and franchise around Naruto. In fact, there's a second generation Boruto for the kids that grew up on Naruto's kids. So that's a rare instance. Oftentimes you see, um, but um, but if you look at like Batman, Superman, all the DC content and the decades of history that those stories and those comic books have created, it's much, I think people have a stronger connection. There's a larger cultural connection to that. Not to say that doesn't exist in Japan, but in America, it's a very, I mean, it's a legacy that's bigger than any one creator. It's almost its own, like Marvel has its own brand around these characters, and that's something that I think Japanese publishers and can't necessarily copy or create, because they just don't have a character that's been around as long as Superman has. Okay, so I just wanted to get that out there. I don't think American comic books or manga are necessarily in competition with one another, but if you were to ask me which I prefer both. I think there are aspects of manga that are superior to American comic books, and I think there are aspects of American comic books that are superior to manga. But I can recognize that manga does have the better art, the better stories. That's just my opinion. But where I will give American comic books is because I grew up in America, and because I grew up reading X-Men and characters like Weapon X, like Logan. This character is bigger than anything that I've read or I just don't have the connection with, even though I love a lot of the manga content out there, and I love creators like, Osamu Tezuka, who created Astro Boy, and Leiji Matsumoto, who created like Star Blazers. These are two legends in manga and anime. Okay, those two stories or characters, two franchises, can't compete with my connection to just this one character. And this isn't even my favorite character in comic books. Okay, it's my favorite Marvel character. But like I said, Superman is my favorite character, and that's because just a combination of things: comic books, movies, that Christopher Reeve movie, as I've mentioned on many occasions. So that's where I stand on the whole debate. Like, let's not, don't criticize manga because it's different and because it's not something you grew up with. Okay. In fact, more people read manga than they do comic books, and that's just because Japan has done a great job marketing manga and animation to a global audience, whereas American comic books haven't been marketed to a global audience. The movies have, and everybody knows Wolverine and Batman through the movies, but nobody in China has probably picked up a Batman comic book. So in terms of manga's reach, it's definitely bigger than comic books will ever be. But at the same time, anime, so manga doesn't necessarily translate into movies. It translates into anime and anime movies, which is animation, but it doesn't translate into live action, whereas American comic books has. That's another big difference. So there are just all these little intricate differences, and I would just say, if you love comic books, go pick up a manga comic book and see for yourself what the differences are, and see for yourself which you prefer. You may end up loving manga. You may end up preferring to stick with comic books and love just the medium of comic books. But don't just, what I like to say is, try something before you say you can't eat it. Okay, before you say, "Oh no, I don't like it, you got to try it first. You can't just look at something, judge something by its cover and make a judgment on it without having all the information in front of you. Oh, let me start by, okay, so this is Peach Momoko's one of her more recent covers, and it's an amazing book. X Lives of Wolverine, it's the Weapon X Wolverine. Just a beautiful cover. Instantly one of my favorite covers in my modern collection. And right now, I've got to say, if you look at Stanley Lau, who's Art Germ, right? Very popular artist, Peach Momoko. And then the next artist I'm going to showcase, who I got here, David Nakayama, okay? These three artists are just killing it in the cover game. And they all happen to be Asian artists. But at the same time, what I don't want people to do is I don't want them to put these three very distinct styles and identities and lump them into one bucket or category as Asian comic book artist, okay? First off, Peach Momoko is from Japan. She's Japanese, she speaks Japanese, her English is not very good, and her art style is very influenced by Japanese art and manga style, okay? And what I really appreciate about her is like just her technique with using, brush and watercolor to bring these beautiful detailed covers to life. Just, it really is like hands down more talented than, I think I saw somebody like try to compare like a Todd McFarlane or some of these American artists to Peach Momoko, like that they are more talented or as talented. No. Peach Momoko is hands down the most talented artist in the game right now, okay? And I mean, that's my opinion, but it borders on fact. She's just far more talented in terms of her ability to draw, okay? And that is a measurable. I think even if you ask some of the top American comic book artists, the ones that have been doing it for decades, they'll agree. Like, Peach Momoko is just, her skill is just unparalleled. And that's the thing, like Peach Momoko in Japan might be considered average, and that's just how it goes, right? Peach Momoko technically in Japan is just maybe an average artist, but here in America, with what she's doing now is just, she's making people here look just silly. She's just making people look silly. Okay, but she's from Japan. Now, Art Germ, he's from Hong Kong, okay? And he's Chinese, or I should say he's Hong Kong born Chinese. So, he will have had an education. He will, where he learned English, British colonial influenced education. I would say a more Western maybe approach to education and viewing the world. But he's another example of like a Peach Momoko. He's not an American artist. And when you look at his style, you can see definitely there's a lot of Japanese manga influence, but that doesn't define. I would say he's just more of like a, he's more of a master of the digital medium, and he's just got a wonderful, realistic, art style of his own. So another great, technically gifted and you know, beautiful artist. And that brings me to my next artist. And so I just opened the cover here. Let's pull the tape off and we're gonna reveal the book. So this brings me to David Nakayama, who I love his art, okay? And the reason I love his art is because you get those American sensibilities in his art style, but at the same time, he does incorporate some, manga influence. You can see that in his work. And he is a Japanese American artist. He grew up in Hawaii, he lives in Hawaii. I don't know if he grew up in Hawaii, but he's an American, and he's just so another very gifted and talented artist with a unique style all his own. But what I like, whereas this is a great cover and it has all the detail and everything, I think you'll see in my next comic, talk about the Wolverine character. This is just hands down one of the best Wolverine covers I go on and on about Wolverine 27 by Jim Lee as being one of the most iconic covers in comic books during his era. I can definitely make that same argument for this next cover, and it's a beautiful cover, man. There you go. Feast your eyes on this. So this is a signed copy. Now, let me just promo David's website. It's davidnakayama.com. And if you want signed copies of his covers, go onto the website and order. I got this over the weekend, and I don't know if it's still available, but I got this for $40. There's some shipping involved, but it's ends up being 40 something dollars, and it comes signed. Now you can also get a CGC version where they'll send it into CGC and it'll come slabbed with a yellow label. That costs $100. So if you want to pay $100 to get the CGC label and the slab, by all means do it. But I didn't feel like I needed to get that. I just wanted the signature there. It's got a COA, and man, is this a beautiful book. It's a beautiful book. What I love about this book is, first of all, it's, again, like I said, it's just got that American sensibility of the character right there. Okay. Logan holding a samurai sword with his claw out. But it's also that he's being Japanese American, he has the, Mount Fuji in the background there, beautiful backdrop. Got the sakura petals here falling. Just a beautiful cover. I love the pink and blue shades, and then just the ripped musculature of the character. And again, just that badass pose. Oh, I love this cover. It's an amazing cover. So thank you, David Nakayama, for this signed comic. What was great about getting this book was he was promoting a big signing he did over the weekend, and then he kind of said, hey, look, I signed all these books, they're available on my website, go and order them. And I saw that post and I did exactly that, and I did that for this specific book. I said, I went in there and I gotta get this book, I gotta see if it's available. And luckily it was a signed copy of The X Deaths of Wolverine. So again, we have two great covers. I do prefer this one though. Okay, I do prefer this one. But don't get me wrong. They're both, these are two of my favorite artists in the game right now, Peach Momoko and David Nakayama. Again, one's a Japanese artist, one's a Japanese American artist. And, you know, just they're different styles, but they're both killing the cover game. David Nakayama has so many just wonderfully vivid pieces of comic art on that website. So go and check out. And he's got just beautiful, you know, negative space covers, just colorful, graphically just popping, eye-popping pieces of art. And the same goes for Peach Momoko. Peach Momoko just has all these like wonderfully detailed, beautifully illustrated works. And so, yeah, these are just two artists. And that's the thing, like, I know people want to put them in those Asian buckets, but I just hope people realize, like, these are Asian artists, but they're all very different. They all came from different places. They all speak different languages. They all have different sensibilities and connections with American comic books or manga or art in general. So I would hope that, you know, and when you look at like a Jim Lee, right? Jim Lee was kind of one of those pioneering Asian American artists. Jim Lee's, you know, grew up drawing and reading American comics. So I would say even his legacy is very different from somebody like Peach Momoko. Peach Momoko probably didn't have much access to Jim Lee or didn't even know who Jim Lee was until she started doing work in American comic books and became aware of who Jim Lee was. So, you know, yeah, just be cognizant of that these artists are all different. Just because they're Asian doesn't mean they you know, have the same experiences or upbringings or you know, like there's no like Asian school of art. They just happen to be different people who in the American comic book medium happen to share the classification of being Asian. But in Asia, you know, anybody in Asia would look at these three artists and know that they're completely three different people. Only in America do we try to lump like Filipinos and Vietnamese and Koreans all into one category. And I hope to appreciate, if you really like gravitate to these two artists, just know, even though they share Japanese ancestry, they come from very different places. Okay, so that's that. And yeah, I guess I'll just go through my Peach. I'm just gonna first of all show off this cover again. Oh, it's a beautiful cover. It is just absolutely gorgeous. And this instantly becomes my favorite modern book. Yeah, this instantly becomes my favorite modern cover in the collection. You know, this had been my favorite. This one right here. Because when I saw this, I was like, I gotta get that, right? I had to get this one. And I've had this on my want list for a while, but I felt like this was one I wanted to get right away. But now that I have this signed copy, oh my goodness, this is just beautiful. Yeah, I've been just kind of waiting, because I think this is like right now going for like $20 at most shops, and I just was like, I don't know if I want to pay $20 for a book that could, you know, maybe you know how there's like that FOMO and then the price goes down. I just didn't want to put myself in that situation where I would overpay. But for $40 a signed copy, I do not feel like I overpaid at all. This is I got it at $40, and I probably would have paid more for a signed copy from David Nakayama. But now that I got it for $40, it's not going anywhere. It's staying in the collection. Okay, so I'm just gonna go through my Peach Momoko since I got them out and just kind of show you why she's like just killing it. So again, Peach Momoko, Art Churn, David Nakayama, 3 Asian artists that are just killing the American comic book cover game right now. And when you look at these just mesmerizing covers, you understand why. Peach, man, Peach. Look how beautiful that cover is. Like these almost these just they don't have. You can't call them comic book covers. They're not comic book covers. They're so like it's such a different style of illustration and technique. You know, like I don't think people realize like now I can't confirm this, but these aren't based on like your typical sketch and ink. These are all like brushed techniques. You know, she's brushing this and then coloring it. That's it, brushing and coloring, which is much different than having 3 people, one person just doing pencils and then another person inking it and shading it, and then a final person adding the digital coloring. That's a different technique altogether than this old school, like just one person doing the art. Okay, so appreciate it for what it is, and it's just beautiful. Wow. Dripping from the wall. Just absolutely beautiful covers. Appreciate. Don't hate, appreciate. Moko's kill. Now I had a conversation recently with, you know, he's an older comic book collector, and you know, he and I are buddies. But you know, I was telling him, man, I love Peach Momoko, and he was just kind of saying, well, you know, I don't really like her. I'm more of a Neil Adams guy, and I get it. You know, Neil Adams is a great artist. I'm not taking anything away from Neil Adams. I think he's a legend. He's a great artist. Jim Lee, all these guys, great artists, legends. But yeah, I'm telling you. Neil Adams could never draw anything, create anything remotely close to this. Never. So, I mean, it is what it is. Everybody's going to have their favorite artist for whatever connection, whatever reason. And that comic book medium is a tried and tested true medium, so nothing against that, but you got to appreciate when somebody comes along and puts out just these just absolutely beautiful pieces of art. You just got to appreciate it for what it is. Okay, appreciate it for what it is. All right, so yeah, I mean, I hope people don't go away from this video thinking like, hey, you know, like I'm hating on American comic books or hating on American comic book artists or anything like that. I am not, because I love American comic book artists. I love the medium. Okay, I collect. Jim is my favorite, but I collect, you know, like John Byrne, Todd McFarlane, Neil Adams. I'm really finding an appreciation for like Ross Andrew, Kurt Swan. I've always loved John Romita Jr.'s art, Stan Lee, but just know, when you talk about Stan Lee, that, for example, Osamu Tezuka is Japan's Stan Lee, okay? And that there are Japanese Stan Lees, there are Japanese Jim Lees, there are Japanese Neil Adamses. All the people we love and revere here in American culture, in the American medium, the Japanese have the same associations and the same long history and the same connection to content over there. Okay, and so just respect everybody's differences, and also when there are, those differences, when they come to the forefront of the medium here in America, don't just write them off. Please take time to learn about who they are, and how that translates into what they create. Okay, thanks for watching. See you next time.